reaction from you. I'm sure they're just getting this news as we are. But if I can, we are just saying that NBC News is projecting that control of the U.S. House of Representatives is going to go to the Republicans. Control of the House. That gives Republicans the trifecta. They will control the White House. We saw they just elected a new leadership team on the Senate side, and control of the House projected by NBC News to go to Republicans. I want to bring in Republican strategist and former Burgum presidential campaign spokesman Lance Trover. There was Democrats holding out hope, as you know, up until the last second, probably this last second, that they might have a chance to somehow eke out a small majority. That is not going to be the case. What does this mean for Donald Trump and his plans for the United States going forward?
That means it's full steam ahead for the Trump agenda. I mean, I got to believe the folks at Mar-a-Lago are absolutely thrilled with this news. I mean, I think everybody kind of thought this was what was going to happen. But, you know, Donald Trump made a lot of promises on the campaign trail, talking about getting our border under control. We have the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is about to expire in April. That is going to be a massive piece of legislation and getting those tax cuts through. So he's going to need all the help he can get. I think the larger question for me here is how much are the Democrats going to come to the table and want to help? Because if you look at this, going all three, or going with the presidency, the Senate, and the House going Republican, that's a pretty big mandate from the people of this country. And so I think they're expecting not just Republicans to move forward, but I think they're going to be expecting the Democrats to come to the table as well.
So let's talk a little bit about the kind of a, I don't want to call it a kumbaya, but the civility we saw between outgoing President Biden, incoming President Trump. To get things done, there are certain issues where with a very tight majority, it's going to be difficult. So where do you see strategically the Democrats coming in, and on what issues in particular do you think that they have room for a fight?
I go back to the election. The top two issues were getting prices under control, the economy, taxes were the number one issue. Donald Trump consistently led with voters by double digits on that issue. And the same thing goes with the border. It tells.
All right, my friends, J.R. Dukes with you. Appreciate everybody being with me today. Give me 1 second, make sure everything is working the way it should. Welcome to everyone on YouTube and on the X platform and our friend on Twitch. I am J.R. Dukes, your host. What a news day I have for you today. Lots going on, obviously, in the wake of President Donald Trump elects fantastic, massive victory over these woke Democrats. There is a lot of changes in store and a lot of great changes happening, and we should all be extremely, well, let's put it this way. To say I'm ecstatic over this would be an understatement. I think what we're about to see happening is nothing but a true revolution of sorts right here in the great United States. And by extent, it also helps out the entire world. It keeps the world a better, safer place, having a strong leader like we have with President Donald Trump. All right, if you're new to the program, please come on in, say hello. Let me make sure everybody's got a link for today in here. If you would like to join, feel free to do so. The following is the link. All you got to do is click on this link right here. You can appear in person on camera and have a discussion, ask a question, or you can simply call in. If you're kind of bashful, no problem. You don't have to show yourself on camera. You can just simply call in and express any thought, concern, or question that you may have. So we are very familiar already, at least most of us should be ready, with the fact that President Donald Trump met with outgoing President Joe Biden today at the White House. We'll take a quick peek at that so everybody can kind of get a feel for what's going on with that. And it wasn't really a long meeting, at least in front of the cameras per se. However, we did get a little bit of video inside. If you have not seen that today, we'll take a quick peek at it. It's a short clip here.
President-elect and former president.
Thank you.
Donald, congratulations.
Thank you.
And looking forward to having like we said, smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
good.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough. And it's many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. a transition that's so smooth. It'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Joe.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
I don't know. I think that's about as cordial as we could have expected for this type of meeting. I mean, after all, they've been through lawfare. The president has suffered trials, of course, in Georgia, inside Atlanta's Fulton County. You've had him essentially berated, attacked in the New York court system under Letitia James, and of course, Judge Merchan. I'm not exactly sure that the meeting could have went any better per se. I was thinking about this earlier today. What would it have been like if it was me that had to be there for that particular meeting? I'm not sure I would have been as cordial as he was to President Joe Biden. As a matter of fact, as we talked about yesterday, it's very clear that Melania Trump, Donald Trump's wife, the former and future First Lady, was effectively a no-show at her invite for tea with Dr. Jill Biden, aka Jill Biden. And I don't blame her. She expressed, at least through the published reports I've read, that she was extremely upset having the FBI raid her home, go through her underwear drawer. Can you imagine just how terrible that would be to have your privacy invaded like that, and for political reasons, for essentially no reason whatsoever other than the fact that your husband is trying to become the next president of the United States? I would be extremely upset, and I am I'm one of those that is in the camp of I don't really blame her. So it is what it is. They brought it on themselves. It's their problem, and I believe that Dr. Jill Biden gave this letter that he's supposed to deliver. Donald Trump's supposed to deliver to his wife on behalf of the Bidens. But again, I'm not putting much stock in that. Now, one other thing that the news media has been talking a ton about today, ever since the election was lost by the Democrats, they have been like, what is going on with our loss? Why did this happen? I mean, these people are pulling their hair out. You have James Carville. He's cussing up a storm. He's definitely not a happy camper in the wake of this loss. But I'm going to tell you where I think they lost it. First of all, the loss is Kamala Harris, full stop. It's her fault. She's a terrible candidate. Her positions are not advocated by the vast majority of the American population. Nobody wants to become socialist. The Hispanic immigrants that they're allowing into the country, these so-called illegal immigrants, they don't want socialism either. I know the Democrats are banking on the fact that all of these illegal aliens that are illegal aliens right now cannot be deported, at least in the numbers that they have came into this country with, that we simply cannot deport that many people. So they're banking on the fact that sooner or later they're going to have to resolve this and put these people on a pathway to citizenship, at least the vast majority of the individuals that are here. But I think, like we talked about yesterday, I think they are sorely miscalculating that, because individuals, especially the ones from Venezuela, Colombia, Cuba, they have had plenty of socialism, and they don't want any more of it. They are done with socialism. I know our kids in school are indoctrinated with this socialism nonsense. Socialism is not something they want, and that is the embodiment of Kamala Harris. That's exactly what she stands for, is this utopian vision of socialism, and it is not something that is true in reality. It's absolutely terrible. It may look good on paper. I'm not going to lie about that. It looks good on paper, but it doesn't work in the real world. And I'm going to show you the moment that I think, this is just my opinion, but this is the moment I think that she lost the election. And tell me what you think. You can put in the comments below if you like, but let me know what y'all think about it. Here's the moment on The View.
Personal experience will have its impact on the presidency.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact. Yeah. The work that we have done, for example, capping the cost of insulin at $35 a month for our seniors.
That was it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that is the moment that lost her the presidential race. She goes on this View, and for whatever reason, maybe it's self-torture. I will watch The View occasionally myself. Sometimes it's interesting. At least it's interesting to hear how these woke Democrats, how they view things and how they can have such a distorted view of reality. And clearly you have in Kamala Harris a vice president that frankly did not want to throw President Biden under the bus. And I respect that on some level. Having said that, the American population, the majority of us wanted change. I think it's really just that simple. And when she essentially said, I was in the room basically every time the president made a decision, and I can't really think of anything that I would do differently. Really? Are you kidding me, Kamala? How about that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan? When you have people falling off of airplanes, and then you had all these American soldiers that were killed in the withdrawal because it was not done properly and correctly. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Of course, there's many things she should have said and done to differentiate herself between her candidacy and her relationship with Joe Biden. But again, I guess you could always play Monday morning quarterbacking, my friends, but she has no one to blame but herself. And her entire campaign was a campaign built on lies, built on half-truths. There was a very long record of everything that she has said on video that she has stood for. And then basically she said, you cannot believe your lying eyes. Well, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think people are going to believe that nonsense, those lies that you're spewing? And how about the fact that she effectively did not do any interviews, at least any hard interviews, mainstream interviews, if you will? She did not appear on Fox News one time other than that short interview with, what was that, Brett Baer? That one interview is all that she did, and she didn't really provide any substance. And I would argue that even during that video or that interview, she was basically saying all the time, can I speak? Brett was trying to narrow her down. Let's be honest about it, but she just wasn't taking it. And I think he had a strict 20-minute time limit, if I remember. So again, she has no one to blame but herself for this loss. And I want to show one other little clip here. This is our friend Scott Baio. Remember him from Happy Days? He came out with this message for Hollywood, and it says Happy Days. We'll listen to this for a second. It's kind of cute.
Robert De Niro, Rob Reiner, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and others. From The View, Rachel Maddow, Mark Ruffalo, Mark Hamill, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Richard Marx, Alec Baldwin, Pink, Ron Howard, Julia Roberts, George Clooney, Leo DiCaprio, Oprah, Cardi B, Lizzo, Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, Jennifer Garner, J-Lo, Andy Cohen, Cher, Bryan Cranston, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kathy Griffin, Michael Keaton, Rosie O'Donnell, John Stamos, Eva Longoria, John Lennon.
You can tell he thought this through. He wanted to make sure he did not leave out any of the Hollywood elite. And just as a quick note, you see that shawl behind him? I believe that's called a Hermes blanket or whatnot. That right there is worth $500-600.
Streisand, Mark Cuban, and others.
Well, I think we all kind of feel that way. Sometimes you just want to kind of laugh in their face after all that nonsense, after all this lawfare. And I think the lawfare was a big key in this whole election loss for the Democrats. They seriously need to re-examine their entire party, their entire platform. If I have to say one thing about Joe Biden, if I'm trying to be optimistic and I'm trying to be kind about this, I am appreciative of the fact that he took time to welcome President-elect Donald Trump to the White House today. He made sure he shook his hand. I think all that's appropriate, and I think the country, if not the world, needed to see that today. They needed to see this picture of a smooth transition of power. But the thing of it is, when you look back at the Biden-Harris record and the fact that they engage in all this lawfare, and this lawfare is still going on, unfortunately. They still have not pulled the plug on this lawfare. It's clearly coordinated from the White House directly. And then, of course, it's been sectioned off between Fani Willis, Nathan Wade in Atlanta, Judge Merchant, Letitia James in New York. I mean, the fact of the matter is they still have not pulled the plug on this lawfare. And all it has done, and this is the point that enrages me concerning President Biden. And listen, I've had other presidents that I've not agreed with or things that rub me the wrong way, but not like this, because these type of problems can destroy a country like the United States. And what I'm specifically talking about is President Biden, the Harris-Biden administration made us no better than a third world country by engaging in these type of shenanigans. I don't think there's any other way to say it or to justify it. We no longer have the moral authority to look at the rest of the world and tell them, hey, you need to conduct your elections in such a way. You should not go after your political enemies just because you happen to be the party or person in power. Because that's exactly what the Biden-Harris administration did against Donald Trump. And it's highly unacceptable. And it's truly dangerous. This is not rhetoric on my part. I'm not trying to engage in platitudes or any other type of nonsense. I'm telling you, this is the kind of thing that, if it's not corrected, can destroy a country. And ladies and gentlemen, every country in the history of the world has fallen. Look at the Roman Empire, a great, huge, powerful empire. One of the main reasons they fell, in my opinion, is corruption. Engaging in the nonsense we just seen the Biden-Harris administration go after Donald Trump for. It's just highly unacceptable, and it's just outrageous, absolutely outrageous. And frankly, I think they got what they deserve. On your screen is, I forgot this lady's name, but she is rather liberal. However, even she is echoing what I have been talking about in relation to the Democrats. The Democratic Party of today is not the Democratic Party of JFK. It's not even the Democratic Party of Hillary Clinton's husband, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, I would argue, even JFK, these were more conservative. These were Democrats that my grandfather could vote for and frankly did vote for. And he appreciated that about the Democratic Party, being the party of the working class people. Well, they no longer carry that mantle because they had been hijacked by the ultra left of their party. I mean, it's just this simple. They've been hijacked with this woke nonsense where you have women serving in the military in combat roles, and to say something like I just said is somehow offensive and misogynistic and racist, perhaps, and whatever. It's gotten to the point to where the Democrats are so far out there on the left, they want to stop free speech. You know, they've already started that. They call it misinformation, disinformation, and don't think you can't come here to America. It definitely can come here to America. If we get time, we're going to talk about it, because I had a friend of mine send me a post from Britain. There are people in jail right now in the United Kingdom for making a post on the X platform or Facebook or something, some type of public platform, and it offended someone else. And they're in jail for that. These are the kind of laws they want to pass here in the United States. But we're going to take a quick listen to this. Here is this lady expressing her frustration with the Democratic Party of today. Here we go.
Registered independent, but I would say I leaned liberal. And the Democratic Party, to me, now is unrecognizable. And my question that would be directed towards Dan, because I look at the Democratic Party now, and they're not even the same party that they were when Obama ran. You know, they used to be the party of civil liberties. Now they openly are saying they're pro-censorship. They're talking about regulation and censorship of social media under the guise of misinformation. But the problem is, who decides what is misinformation? You know, that's very scary to me, because I think there's a reason that free speech is the First Amendment. It's the very first one in the Constitution. You know, the Democrats used to be the anti-war party, and now the Democrats are campaigning with the Cheneys. If you told me that the Democratic nominee would be campaigning with Dick and Liz Cheney, I wouldn't have believed you. They used to be the party of the working class. Now they are the party of the elites. You know, they're a completely different party. I feel like everything has kind of reversed. I feel like they're part of the problem is their nomination process, because they seem to anoint their nominees as opposed to letting a
That is an excellent point. The fact that you had a de facto coup, you can call it what you want, but you had Joe Biden that received, I don't know, ever how many million votes he received to be the Democratic Party nominee, and the powers that be, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, they decided they want to throw him out. I mean, come on, how undemocratic can you be that you decide that the guy that you've been hiding his condition, his serious condition of deterioration from the American public, and then all of a sudden you've decided, hey, our mistake can no longer be hidden, and then you throw him out and replace him with Kamala Harris. And don't let anybody kid you, my friends. The reason, despite what Nancy Pelosi originally said, that they had an open primary process, they did not have an open primary process. The only reason that no one spoke out is because they didn't want to be labeled a racist. You know, they turned to this racism card so quickly, way too often, because think about it. The vice president being a black lady, can you imagine if they didn't give it to her? Then they would be labeled as a racist because she was the next one in line, so to speak, to be president of the United States. And they would make the case that you simply cannot have her as your lead candidate. Again, just a bunch of hypocrisy and nonsense, and definitely anti-democratic in the way that they did this entire situation.
Primary process play out. And I feel like if they let the Democrats choose the nominee, they would have actually, I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like Kamala Harris is.
You got to love that guy's smile on the bottom. What's the bottom left-hand side of my screen with the red hat on? I just love that guy. I don't know who he is, but he cracks me up every time I see him.
The worst. No, she's the worst nominee I think I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Right,
And
Melissa, hold on. That's a lot, and I think we all want to ask you questions, and
that's the main takeaway on that I wanted to make sure everybody got a little bit of a sample, because I think she puts it in a very concise and easy to understand way. Let's just go with it like that. I don't think there's much arguing with that. She is expressing the sentiments of a lot of Democrats ever since the election. Frankly, a lot of these people have been talking about this even before the election, because they do not like the way their party has been going. They don't like the way that their party has been hijacked. And of course, now they're paying the price for that. But it is also very scary to me anyways, just how close she got to actually being the president of the United States. Isn't that a very scary thing? I will add one last thing too. It didn't help the fact that Barack Obama and other people were essentially chastising everyone. If you're a black man, especially black woman, hey, you cannot vote for anyone other than Kamala Harris because you're black. Or if you're not black, again, playing this stupid race card that if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, you're either a racist or you're some type of misogynist. It's just ridiculous. And listen, they're getting what they deserve, right? Again, I have to talk about now this Alan Lichtman. I just can't stop talking about this guy. To me, it just cracks me up. How many times have we been watching TV and they put someone on here and say, this guy has been predicting this election, been predicting whatever ever since Moses, and this person's almost never been wrong, and what they predict comes true, and it's in the press all the time. And then you know how it is, you wonder, hey, I wonder if this person actually is correct or if they're just full of you know what. Well, obviously this guy here is full of you know what, because his prediction for Kamala Harris, as we showed in previous programs, definitely did not materialize. I think I have exposed him on this program for what he is. I think he is a Democrat, a woke Democrat at that, and he's wearing the clothing of a pollster. Obviously, the polls ain't worth a darn. They cannot do polls correctly. I predicted that on this channel, that Donald Trump was well underrepresented in the polls. We can debate as to why the reason for that is, if it was something purposeful or if it has something to do with the way they take the polls, and Trump supporters are either underpolled or they do not feel comfortable basically stating who they're going to vote for as president of the United States. But at any rate, this guy in particular was just like, I don't know, kind of like a thorn on your backside all the time, because you see him all over the news telling you how things are going to go. And I don't know. It's just interesting that he was wrong. I love the moment when he realized he was wrong. He wouldn't even give interviews for the first couple of days after the election. But the reason I want to revisit this is now he's kind of gathered himself up. He's apparently friends with Chris Cuomo here on the News Nation network. And I do like these other networks, News Nation and Newsmax. At least sometimes they're interesting to listen to. But it's just interesting how he has come up with this, I guess you can call it, it's more like just a laundry list of reasons why he is kind of right, even though he was wrong. Let's just listen to it for a few minutes, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Let me know in the comments if you guys understand what I'm talking about pertaining to this guy. Does he not come off as some type of closet Democratic pundit of some sort? At least that's the way he comes across to me. But let's take a quick listen.
The first woman president, Kamala Harris. My predictions have stood the test of time.
I'm going to back up just a little bit because I don't want to miss anything.
It's going to be a path-breaking victory. The first woman president, Kamala Harris. My predictions have stood the test of time. The keys are the North Star, the unchanging system.
And you are sticking right now that the keys.
Yeah, he has a system. If you're not familiar with him, he has a system that he calls the keys. Now, when you read his keys, it's pretty easy. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but you look at the keys, and to me, it seems like you should read them one way. He's like, oh, no, I'm the only one that can interpret the keys. I made the keys. If you don't like the way I interpret it, then get your own system or make your own keys. That's what he said in many of the other interviews, because to me, his keys look reasonable as far as trying to predict who's going to win, but he's the only one with the secret knowledge to know how to read these alleged keys.
Predict that Vice President Harris wins the election in 6 days.
That's right. It's possible, but a lot would have to go wrong for Harris to lose.
A lot went wrong, right?
So it was possible, and it happened. Why? And how does that change the reckoning of what the keys mean and how they should be applied? Professor of American History at American University, the father of the 13 keys, Alan Lichtman. Good to see you, Professor.
Always good to be with you, and I do have a pretty deep explanation.
Oh, yeah, he thought it through here.
Oh, I want to hear it. So I just want to say off the top, you know, you're a friend of mine, and I don't like people coming at.
He just looks too excited, too anxious to start rattling off his detailed explanation as to what happened to his alleged
after you, especially after the fact. It's like, you know, one side was mad at you when you made the prediction. Now the people are mad at you after the prediction. I'm sorry, but, you know, I guess these days, perversely, it's a sign that you're relevant, Professor. I guess you can sell it to yourself that way, but boy, do people suck. What did you figure out about the analysis of the race?
Yes, as I said, things could go wrong. There could be unprecedented events that change the pattern of 160 years of history. That's what happened here. Two things. Number one, disinformation. We've always had disinformation, but disinformation has exploded to an unprecedented degree. You talked about a grievance election, but a lot of that grievance was driven by disinformation.
Yeah, again, we have another liberal talking about this disinformation. I told you that our free speech rights are highly, highly under attack right now. Every single woke Democrat that I hear going around blabbering, they're all talking about misinformation, disinformation. And I think it was Tim Walz himself, the VP candidate under Kamala Harris, said that, hey, listen, the First Amendment does not give you a right to spew disinformation. And of course, he's just flat wrong. It definitely gives me a right to say whatever I want to say, even if it is AKA misinformation, but I digress.
Starts with Fox News and conservative media, conservative podcasters with tens of millions of views. But we've seen something brand new this time. The 300 billionaire Elon Musk putting his thumb on the scales through his control of X, formerly Twitter. It's been reported that his misinformation has had billions, literally billions of views. And this has spread to every aspect of this election. There is misinformation about everything about the economy, inflation, jobs, unemployment, the stock market, growth. So
just so far, so we can keep track. Basically, he's saying what happened was you guys are stupid. That's basically what he's saying. You guys are stupid. You guys believe this misinformation. It's Elon Musk's fault on the X, and in general, it's just the internet's fault.
There is vast disinformation about undocumented immigrants, that they're supposedly killers who are out to get you. In fact, studies by Cato and the National Institute of Justice show undocumented immigrants are the most law-abiding segment of our society, committed crimes and violent.
I'll give you a quick tidbit of knowledge to remember for the rest of your life. When you hear people, I don't even care if it's me spewing statistics. I heard someone told me a long time ago that there are what we call lies, and then there are damn lies, and then there's something called statistics. Always remember that. It kind of comes in handy when people are spewing statistics, because the reality is, especially if you're good with math and statistics in general, you can pretty well find a statistic to fit any type of narrative you're trying to convince someone of. So just kind of keep that in your mental brain back there.
Crimes, less than half that of native-born Americans. It spread to the hurricane relief, spreading lies that hurricane relief dollars were being diverted to migrants. It's lies about the Ukraine war, that somehow Ukraine was responsible for having one of the world's great powers invade a third or fourth rate.
See how he's confusing basically what could be something reasonable people can disagree with and saying, okay, that's misinformation, because I think it's very clear that dollars that could be used for hurricane victims had to be used instead for the illegal migrants. And same thing with Ukraine. We talked about this on many occasions, that it is definitely the case that you could argue that there's another side to what's going on in Ukraine, instead of exactly what the Biden administration is trying to tell us about the reality on the ground.
Great power. And, as scholars have shown, once you dissolve truth, democracy dissolves along with it. The way authoritarianism takes hold, and it's taking hold all over the world, not just here, is not through force, but through the manipulation of information. As George Orwell warned in 1984, in that dictatorship, war is peace, famine is plenty.
Yeah, and it also talks in the book 1984 that, there's all kinds of quotes you can pull out. Again, it's one of them things where you can find a narrative to fit whatever you're trying to say. But it also says in there that they will tell you effectively, you cannot believe your lying eyes. And that's kind of what he is telling us once again. I've had enough of him already. But the point is, this guy, when you see him again, this next election cycle, this guy's a fraud. This guy is a pundit. He's a Democrat, in my opinion, wearing the clothing of a pollster. That's just the way I feel about it. And yeah, American Nana, thank you for joining us as always, sweetheart. Pleasure to have you in the chat. And we always need to remember and continue to pray for all the victims of Hurricane Helena that devastated a large part of the North and South Carolina, for that matter, especially along the creek beds and the rivers. Had a lot of people killed, a lot of flooding, a lot of home damage and stuff like that. But anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for bringing that up. It's extremely important that we always remember to recognize there are people that are definitely suffering out there, and suffering in ways that we kind of take for granted. You know what I'm saying? We have a lot of good things going on right now in our world and in our country. And I, for one, am extremely blessed and extremely happy, no matter what the problems are going around us. You always have to keep the faith and keep moving ahead, I guess, is exactly what I'm trying to point out, what I'm trying to say right there. So let's go ahead and switch over and let's take a look at Donald Trump, and let's see what he has to say today. I just updated this a few minutes ago. It's always good to hear from our future commander-in-chief and see what he has to say about everything that is transpiring. Let's see what we got here. All right, get the best screen right here. Okay, we're just going to scroll through this a little bit. Donald J. Trump, this is on his True Social. If you don't have an account on True Social, I recommend that you take time to get one. And while we're on the subject, it helps the algorithm. It helps helps push this out to everybody. If you would take a second and hit the thumbs up button, whether you're on X, Twitch, or on YouTube, I would appreciate it. Every time that you support the channel in that matter, obviously I appreciate it. So, big news today is that Donald Trump has picked Matt Gaetz it was kind of surprising to me when I heard this, but if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I think it's an interesting pick, and it might be a great thing. We'll just have to wait and see. But Donald Trump, just a little while ago, I think this is about an hour ago, maybe something around there. And where Donald Trump says, "It is my great honor to announce that Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida is hereby nominated to be the Attorney General of the United States. Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney trained at the William & Mary College of Law who has distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperate needed reform at the Department of Justice." It goes on, "A few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Matt will end weaponization of government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore America's badly shattered faith and confidence in our judicial system, aka, ladies and gentlemen, lawfare." That's exactly what he is talking about. And I think Matt Gaetz may be just the person to do that. It's no secret on my channel that I have not always been happy with everything Matt Gaetz has done, specifically when it comes down to the McCarthy issue from last year, where he ousted the Speaker of the House and caused all that drama and nonsense. But at this point, it's time to move on, to get over that. And that's exactly the way I look at it. And that's exactly what I've done. And I encourage us all to do the same. I think that would be a phenomenal pick for the Attorney General. Maybe he can reverse what's been going on and go after the limited bad actors that continue to engage in lawfare and put a stop to it once and for all. And yes, I'm talking about Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, and especially Letitia James of New York, the Attorney General there. Remember, Mike Davis, one of President Trump's attorneys, definitely spoke out, outright threatened Letitia James, and basically had some very interesting words, choice words, and told her that if you continue, we're going to come after you for what we call deprivation of our rights. And, you know, when you start talking civil rights and things along those lines, those are lifetime sentences potentially. So they're not messing around. And I'm glad that they're not. They need to put a stop to this. And if they have to, if she forces it, make an example out of her that you cannot do what you're doing by targeting one particular individual. It's outrageous that this has been allowed. You know, I'm very passionate when it comes to law, legal issues in our court systems. It's absolutely imperative that the justice in our country is truly blind. We've all seen that statue of Lady Liberty standing, holding a scale up, and she's blindfolded. Well, there's a reason for that. Your justice is supposed to be blind. It doesn't matter who you are or what you look like. It's supposed to be even-handed. And obviously, Donald Trump was persecuted, not prosecuted, persecuted, because he was running to be president of the United States again. And the Biden-Harris administration did everything they could to stop him. And based on results, I think that we had a very favorable result. Pretty straightforward. Donald Trump continues to go on talking about Matt will root out systematic corruption at the DOJ. I think that's fantastic. This is definitely going to be a disrupting 4 years ahead of us, and hopefully President Donald Trump can do that. About 2 hours ago, he posted the following statement from President Donald J. Trump. "I am pleased to announce that former Congresswoman Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard will serve as the Director of National Intelligence." It's called DNI for short. "For over 2 decades, Tulsi has fought for our country and the freedoms of all Americans." I think that's another fantastic choice. Remember, back in 2000, I think it was the year before that, so we're talking 2019, she actually had a debate for the Democratic nomination to be president, and one of the people that she debated was Kamala Harris. We've talked about that on this program, and Tulsi Gabbard was very animated, and she was very direct in her attacks against Kamala Harris, and I thought she did a great job. And now she has switched from the Democratic Party and has joined the Republicans, so we're glad to have her on board. Also, the president is talking about Senator John Thune. Today, they had a vote for who is going to be the next leader in the Senate, what they call the majority leader. The former guy, Mitch McConnell, he is retiring, stepping down, whatever. good riddance. We're glad to see him going. And Donald Trump is congratulating John Thune on winning. A lot of people that what you call MAGA crowd, I believe, wanted Senator, or he's now a Senator, Rick Scott, to be the majority leader, but John Thune won out. I don't really think it's going to make that big of a deal. But anyway, the president simply said congratulations to Senator John Thune, the newly elected Senate Majority Leader. And he just goes on and on and on. I think what's important is that the Republicans this year, unlike years past, they put their differences aside and they work with President Trump and get his agenda enacted. Clearly, Donald Trump and the MAGA folks have won a mandate from the American people to carry out the agenda that Donald Trump campaigned on. And hopefully that's exactly what we see come to fruition. We will see. And of course, I will keep you posted with my thoughts on this channel as things develop. Another post today from the president says, and this is another great choice, he says that it's my great honor to announce that Senator Marco Rubio of Florida is hereby nominated to the United States Secretary of State. Marco is a highly respected leader and a voice of freedom. Interesting how time changes things. Back in 2016, 2015, 2016, Marco Rubio and Donald Trump were what you would call adversaries, battling for the nomination of the Republican Party to be the next president of the United States back then. And of course, Donald Trump won out. They have since patched up their differences gratefully, and they have been working together. And obviously, Marco Rubio has been one of the individuals who has helped Donald Trump get to where he is at today. And you can see other people posting Donald Trump Jr. highly praising the choice of Senator Marco Rubio. Lise Wheeler came up with this. I like this as kind of like a little summary of all the great things that have been going on since Donald Trump has ascended to President Trump-elect. And we've touched on this before, but I kind of like the stock market hits record highs. Migrant caravan that was heading to our border dissolved. They had a huge group of people trying to come into the United States once again. We've seen those caravans on TV. That caravan has dissolved now that President Trump. And she goes on and on. You got Bitcoin hitting record high. You got Putin ready to end the Ukraine war. Qatar kicks out the Hamas leaders. EU, the European Union, will buy U.S. gas and not Russia gas. Putin will sell in U.S. dollars. They were trying to remove the dollar as the world's economy or the currency the world uses when they do trades. You have Zelensky on the phone with Trump and Elon Musk. You have New York City mayor saying that, hey, we're going to put a stop to this voucher program we have for illegal aliens. And as a side note, I think I did it yesterday. I'm predicting that you're going to see Mayor Adams getting very, very friendly with President-elect Trump because, in part, Donald Trump and Mayor Adams know the Southern District of New York is hammering and is definitely focusing on going after and taking out Mayor Adams. And it's my opinion they're doing that because Mayor Adams has kind of de facto been supporting Donald Trump, at least on his immigration policies. A long time ago, he came out saying that these immigrants that are coming in, these illegal immigrants coming in, are too much. It needs to stop. And ever since then, in my opinion, he's been targeted. And the Southern District of New York has came out and they're doing what they're doing. And just so you understand how really this is a lot to do about nothing, the mayor, if the allegations are true, is accused of essentially helping somebody cut through red tape, the Turkish government cut through red tape. The allegation is something to the effect of that Mayor Adams helped them bypass some fire inspection so they can get their embassy open quicker in New York City. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, the mayor must have been paid with a huge stack of gold like Menendez in New Jersey. He must have received a bunch of cash, right? Wrong. What he has allegedly received for this so-called illegal conduct is he received an upgraded flight on Singapore Airlines or something stupid. I'm not making that up. That's exactly what he's accused of. So it to me, it just shows just how nutty all these people are. So Donald Trump, Life of the Party, great cover. That's from the New York Post. So clearly he is on track to implement all the changes that he wants to see implemented, and we have to continue to wish him well as he does that. Now, here is this is one from another one from Elise Wilder on JFK. She says it says RFK Jr. says his opinion of Trump has completely changed. I've been convinced that this guy, I've been convinced that this guy that I had such contempt for, such disdain for, is actually a very extraordinary leader. One final note pertaining to this, y'all know way back in 2016, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I was not what you would call a Donald Trump supporter. I have since changed, obviously. I voted for Donald Trump in 2020 and, of course, in 2024. But when I first knew of Donald Trump and his agenda and running for president, I just wasn't convinced, like a lot of other people, that he was the person we needed for the job. And, of course, I have definitely changed my opinion on that. But let's take a quick peek at what RFK has to say. He's definitely got his I guess his uncle's voice, Jay. You know, if that scratchy, wavy voice. But if you didn't hear what he said, he was just talking about how he used to effectively hate Donald Trump, and now he just simply doesn't have that opinion of his friends. So anyway, moving on down our X feed, I started to say Twitter again. A lot of people are talking about the border czar. They're talking about Matt Gaetz. They're talking about all these appointments, especially the guy from Fox News that has been tapped to be the head of the armed forces over at the Pentagon. But at any rate, Jesse Waters is talking about 2025 will be the year of deportation. So let's take a quick peek at this here. This is a figure on your screen that you're definitely not going to hear a lot on the so-called legacy media. When Donald Trump starts deporting people, they're going to tell you how terrible he is. Barack Obama deported 3 million people. You see it on your screen, 2 million under George W. Bush. So when you hear it start of what a terrible thing Donald Trump is doing, just remember this is something that presidents are supposed to do. They're supposed to protect the country. They're supposed to send people that enter the country illegally home. And if you don't believe that, just go to Mexico and you don't have permission to be there, or any other foreign country, and see how they treat you. Do you know, as an American, you cannot even buy land in Mexico unless you are a Mexican citizen? Interesting. And don't get me started on that. There's a million different laws like that where they can come here and live like me and you, but if you go to their country and you don't have the right permission to be there, even if you have permission to be there, you have different standards of living, different things you can and can't do that a regular citizen of that country can do, unlike here in the United States. Just kind of think about that. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong screen for you guys. I just looked over and saw that I put the wrong one on there. We're going to switch over and get the right one. Now, here we go. Continuing on with my buddy Jesse.
And they told their readers Homan looks like Leonardo DiCaprio. Homan's a plain-spoken former patrolman from far upstate New York with a strawberry blonde.
Here's that statistic I just want to make sure everybody sees right there. You had 2 million deportations under Bush. You had Obama had 3 million deportations. So when you hear them talk about how bad Donald Trump is, don't believe it, my friend.
Before Trump takes over. This is why Trump also wants to start deporting people out of D.C. If you're a Washington bureaucrat, might be time to start polishing up the old resume. Trump's promising to make some major cuts. A government worker at the Energy Department told CNN, I would say there's a general feeling of dread among everyone. They have good reason to feel dread. Trump's going to trim the fat on day one. RFK has already has his eyes on slashing 600 jobs at the NIH, same agency that botched COVID.
This is so critical that they get in there and start slashing that budget. I think right now we're 37 trillion dollars in debt. That is not sustainable, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot continue spending money. I mean, listen, a little bit of government debt, no big deal. $37 trillion. It's almost hard to get your mind around how much money that is. And this has to change. This has to stop. It's just another crazy thing going on in our government. And to be fair, it's been going on in Democrat and Republican administrations, and it has to stop. Hopefully, they start turning the curve right now with the policies they're implementing. And I think Elon Musk, JFK for that matter, and definitely Vivek Ramaswamy would be a good start.
FBI Director Chris Wray, also on the chopping block. He's the guy that raided Trump's home and told Congress Trump wasn't hit by a bullet in Butler. He knows his days are numbered. And as we mentioned at the top, Elon Musk and Vivek are teaming up to slash $2 trillion from the budget. And they can't start soon enough. When I was in D.C. just a couple weeks ago, they told me government workers are still working remotely. COVID's been over for 3 years, and Washington bureaucrats aren't coming into the office.
I think when they start digging into what's going on and they just start scratching the surface on the nonsense going on with the government, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of savings, a lot of money coming back into the Treasury, a lot more efficiency going on. Can you imagine what he was just talking about? Ever since COVID, they still have a lot of government workers that are simply working remote. They don't even bother showing up for work. I mean, what is going on with our leaders? And American Anna, you are exactly correct. It is time to drill, baby, drill. I had someone the other day send me a text or email, and they said, hey, why is that going to make such a difference? How is that going to be a panacea? Well, the fact is everything uses energy, and I mean everything, anything productive. Right now, talking with you, I have to have energy to run the computers, run the camera, run the internet. When the cost of making things, doing things is cheaper, everything else starts to come down as a result. Yet you had Kamala Harris and these woke Democrats. What's their solution? Oh, their solution is to go after these bad grocery stores for price gouging. This industry makes 1% to 3%. That's all they make profit on any particular item they sell. So if they sell a can of beans for $1, they might make 1, 2, or 3 pennies off selling that can. And think of this. They have energy costs. They have the cost of the building, of the employees coming in to stack it, to run the cash register. I mean, just all the expenses going on. And at best, they make 1% to 3%. If you start going after people for price gouging, it doesn't matter if it's true or false. What do you think is going to happen to prices? It's going to go straight up because now they have to hire more lawyers. They have to defend themselves in court against these BS charges of price gouging. It's just like we got a government full of very, very stupid people. I think that's pretty well, I think that's self-evident. So we have here, this is a post by Shadow of Israel. Elon Musk has invited Ron Paul to join the normally formed Department of Government Efficiency. This is the department that is going to be co-headed by Elon Musk and Vivek that I was mentioning earlier. And of course, Ron Paul, who is his father or his son is serving in the Senate right now, Rand Paul. You can say a lot of things about Ron Paul, but I've always liked him. He's definitely a fiscal conservative, and he is going to be joining the administration in this capacity. I think that's another great hit. Now, let's talk a little bit about the incoming Pete Hegseth. I think this guy is going to be great. I want to listen to this clip that's been going viral, and then we could talk about it for a minute because I want to make some observations and some points concerning the U.S. military and why it's so important to basically implement the stuff he's talking about implementing. So let's take a listen here.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable. I'm straight up just
now
saying
see, when you don't understand the military and why it is so important to have the policies that he's talking about, it's easy to get confused, because the way he says that, I mean, it's easy for these woke Democrats to say, oh, he's misogynistic. He doesn't want a level field for men and women or whatever in the military. And the reality is this: the military is not like IBM. It's not like a normal company operating in the United States. The military is a very special organization, and their job is to protect us all. It's not about having the correct pronouns. It's not about having the correct, being nice, being diplomatic. They are a lethal force that is there to protect you, protect me, protect our families. When we send them somewhere, their job is deadly. Their job is very risky. And listen, I'm not criticizing anybody serving in the military. I honor and respect them for their service. But the reality is this: look over in Israel with the IDF forces in Israel. Now, Israel's a much smaller country. They probably have no choice but to draft women, have compulsory service in the military. But when you have women serving in these combat roles, the problem is obvious. Look at the hostages that are taken out. We were fortunate enough to talk with one of the family members of one of the hostages on this program I think it was earlier this year. It was earlier this year. And she was expressing how the family is obviously very upset and distraught over the whole situation. And I have continued to pray for her, and I would encourage each and every one of you watching to pray for her and her family and the lady that's being held hostage. But there are several women that are being held hostage, and I don't have to get graphically into it, but we all know what I'm talking about. When you have women out there in combat, when they are taken hostage, there are other terrible things that can happen to them. And it's extremely unfortunate. And it is something that should be, I think, in my mind, only a last resort. It needs to be a team of very strong males that are professionally trained for their job, going out and doing what they're doing. And one other thing I'll mention, they generally don't have the same criteria for the women serving with the men. No matter what they tell you, they're lying to you. Just look at the Secret Service with President Trump's first assassination attempt. It's just a fact of physics. The men are more able to do a job than, say, just a random female might be able to do a job simply for strength. They were saying, oh no, they all met the same test for strength, the same test for stamina, whatever. And when they got the public records on that released, they found out that was a complete lie. Just another lie of the Biden-Harris administration. They had different standards for the women versus the men. And, listen, if you're going to have men and women serving together and that's the way it's going to be, great, then they should at least be held to the exact same standard. When it comes to President Trump is well over 6 feet tall. How is it that a 5'4" woman can essentially cover a president the same as a man that might be 6'5", whatever? I mean, I know that's not the most pleasant thing to say, but it is reality. And part of my program is dealing with reality, dealing with what the truth is, not buying into this indoctrination nonsense that we're always fed with. It has to stop. And I think it's really just that simple. Or Benny posted this thing here with John Kier, what do you call? I just call her KJP. Pierre has an aneurysm. It's an exaggeration, obviously. When asked if Biden will apologize for calling President Trump a dangerous threat to our country, it's kind of a hilarious thing. But every time she's given a press conference now, they're trying to ask her, well, you were just telling us last week that President Trump is a fascist and he's a danger to our democracy. How can you work with him and turn over the keys to the kingdom, if you will, when you're dealing with the fascists? just an interesting take on
And
it, but she's
others?
not too happy
In the
about it. Let's
meeting,
listen.
we saw a unified front related to a transition in the Oval Office meeting, but a lot was said on the campaign trail, like Trump is a dangerous threat to our country and our democracy. Was there an apology today?
I'm sorry?
Was there an apology from
Apology
from President
whom?
Biden for the words, some of the words used?
An apology from the President Biden.
To President-elect Trump for some of the words that was used on the campaign trail.
Look, and I've answered this a couple of times about a threat to democracy in the past week. The president is going to always feel obligated to be honest with the American people. What he says still stands. And it's not just him. You heard this from former staffers. You've heard it from the former chief of staff, John Kelly, and others. You've heard it directly from the president-elect, the former president, about enemy of the people. Very, very clear. Very clear.
So they're going to try to still stand behind that President Donald Trump is a fascist or whatever they've been calling him over there. Just interesting to see them trying to squirm and work their way around that. So I don't know. It is what it is. So here is Matt Gaetz. Okay, it says just in, Senator Mullen indicated he is open to voting for Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. The comment from Mullen comes after he has spoken out publicly against Gaetz. So this, of course, is on CNN, and let's see what he had to say.
Ideal. The ideal way is for us to move forward. But if that's the last resort, we will absolutely do it. If Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate want to keep us from making any of these appointments, we are going to do our best to do whatever we have to do to get the cabinet in a position and get the appointments in a position so President Trump can go to work on day one. So we will do whatever it takes, but that's the last resort.
Are you going to vote for Matt Gaetz?
You know, Matt Gaetz and I, there's no question that we've had our differences. They've been very public about it. I completely trust President Trump's decision making on this one. But at the same time, he's got to come to Congress and sell himself. There's a lot of, or to the Senate and sell himself.
I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think Matt Gaetz would be a fantastic pick for Attorney General. I really didn't think of him for the Attorney General position. I had other individuals in mind personally, but I think he would be a fantastic pick. Let's be straight up about it. Matt Gaetz, he's a disruptor. You know, he will, he'll do exactly what he wants to do. And I know he will come after these individuals strongly that have engaged in this lawfare. Matter of fact, this is the reason why I clipped this right here. Here's Matt Gaetz, and you can see he's given a grilling right here to AG Garland. So listen to a short piece of this and tell me if you think Matt Gaetz is going to be a perfect fit for this Attorney General job.
You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them and will you provide those communications?
You make a request. We'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory, that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's a conspiracy theory, that will be evident. But when you say...
See, I think that's fantastic. That's why I think Matt Gaetz is definitely the person for this particular job. He's it's like President Trump said, he is tenacious. He's not going to stop. He's going to keep drilling, and he will definitely go after the Fannie Willis's, Nathan Wade's, Letitia James, all these, let's just call them bad actors that have engaged in this lawfare. And I think in the case of Nathan Wade and Fannie Willis, you have the possibility of basically perjury. I would say most reasonable people would agree that at least Nathan Wade, if not Fannie Willis, have definitely committed perjury many times. I mean, they have given a lot of testimony under oath. Nathan Wade just recently appeared before one of the committees at the in the House of Representatives that was investigating this entire situation. So I just think that I think this would be an interesting choice. I'm curious if you all agree or don't agree with. Merrick Nana says, there's only a handful of hardcore patriots in DC, Matt Gaetz. I agree. I have not always agreed with Matt Gaetz. I think I've been clear about that. But I think he would be a perfect fit for this job at this specific time. I mean, this is really going to be a shakedown for everyone. And I think it's great. Be fantastic. And American Nana is also talking about some jobs are not for women. And American Nana, I agree with you 100%. It's terrible that in 2024, I even have to have a conversation and basically have a caveat of denial saying, hey, listen, I believe the playing field should be equal between men and women, for everybody for that matter. But the military's different. The military has a different mission. You don't want soldiers being pacified down or made soft. It's just complete nonsense. I can just imagine, we've all seen these war movies where they're in a foxhole, there's some kind of battle going on, and you have men living literally on top of women and those type of cramped, unsanitary. I mean, come on, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out exactly what's going on. And once again, American Nana, it's military and Secret Service. We have seen through those videos exactly the differences in men and women. That one Secret Service agent, it's a fact, was not able to pick Donald Trump up and carry him off stage. He had to walk off stage by himself. It's not a matter of being anti-woman or anything like this. It's just a matter of fact. God made men one way, he made women other ways. And it's very clear to me that there's differences in men and women, and there's certain jobs that a woman is perhaps better at than a man, and probably vice versa. It's just a matter of common sense. Unfortunately, common sense is not all that common anymore. Something else that pops into my mind is like a warehouse job. I mean, if you're being honest about it, I would say most men generally will be able to pick up more weight than maybe a female can pick up. I will also say that if a female can do everything that a man can do as far as weight, as far as the workload, then yeah, they should have the same opportunity as a man. But sometimes there's just not a lot of common sense given when people are thinking and going through the pros and cons of having our military and or Secret Service woke. We're lucky, thank God, we don't have our president, Donald Trump elect, dead as a result of these woke policies. You had the administrator, the lady, her name's escaping me right now, but you had her saying, I want 30% of the women to effectively fill all the jobs in the Secret Service within so many years. It shouldn't be that. It should be the best person fills those jobs, not based on if it's a man or it's a woman. That's where they get this DEI nonsense. The Supreme Court said affirmative action is illegal, and they struck it down. So you had the Biden-Harris administration come up with this DEI nonsense, diversity, equity, inclusion, just more liberal talk that equates to nonsense. So I want to keep my power hour right about the power hour. I appreciate everybody joining me today. Thank you for being here for this power hour and let me go through the Duke's feed with each and every one of you. If you need to reach out to me, my contact information is on the bottom of your screen. You can always comment. You can always send me an email. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're still with me, and might as well. That way you're notified when I go live the next time. Also, you can do me a favor by telling me what time of the day works best for each and every one of you. That way I can see about coming up with more of a standard time in which to go live and have these chats with everybody. So appreciate it just the same. Thanks for joining me. Always like to say, keep that mind free, never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.